Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer. That is Trent Smallwood, and we are here, as we always are on Monday night, live to talk UGA football recruiting. Of course, a week from this Monday night, Trent, Georgia will be playing in its second consecutive national championship game, and that has a lot to do, as we saw with the cavalcade of injuries that came in that game, with the recruiting that we always talk about here, that Kirby Smart has seemingly mastered over his era there. It was quite evident, Trent, with that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, you saw you saw the outside linebacker room get even more thin with Nolan Smith already being down, and then a couple of his backups going down with Robert Bill and Chaz Chambliss. You saw Michael Williams go down a couple times, and just the physicality of the game. I think the biggest loss was Darnell Washington. Whether or not he can play in the national championship is yet to be seen, but just a physical game. All the Ohio State had injuries, Georgia had injuries, and it was just a physical game played throughout the game.
No doubt, no doubt. And we have a special guest here for you tonight. We're going to introduce him here shortly, but first I wanted to get a word in from our sponsors. You can see at the bottom, Turner Wood & Smith Insurance, in cooperation with Auto Owners Insurance. Turner Wood & Smith, they take care of you. All the customer service, been around for over 100 years, and so has Auto Owners as well. Time-tested policy providers, whether it's life, home, car, business, they'll have you taken care of. So go either to twsinsurance.com or auto-owners.com, and they'll get you right. They'll get you helped out with all your stuff. I'll put the URLs down at the bottom, scrolling across here. Now, without further ado, let me get our background switched so I can have three people. This is a name that you need to know for the class of 2025. It is Mr. Ryan Montgomery, quarterback out of Findlay, Ohio. Ryan, how you doing this evening, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mr. Gilmer?
Fantastic. Been interviewing Ryan here, Trent, since he was an eighth grader, just kind of tagging along with his brother Luke, who is a Ohio State commit. So we have we're going to get into that here in just a minute, how this weekend went. But in terms of, Ryan, you came down there as an eighth grader, just not really expecting a whole lot. But for people who haven't read some of the articles we've done at UGA Sports about you and seen some of the interviews, just tell them how that first experience went with you and Todd Monken and, oddly enough, JT Daniels when you visited back then.
Yeah, for sure. So first time I visited Georgia, I was, again, like you said, I was tagging along with my older brother. We were going on a summer tour. One of the schools we stopped by was Georgia. We stopped by there all day, and ironically enough, there was actually no other quarterbacks there that day. So like you said, I got to spend the entire day with Coach Monken. He basically treated me like I was on an official. And yet again, this is when I was in eighth grade. And we also got to have dinner that night with JT Daniels, and that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So, JT was going to be the quarterback at that point in time. He'd just come off a successful into that season before. And then lo and behold, a pesky, little former walk-on ends up, having a pretty good year and leading Georgia to a national championship. We're going to ask you about the dynamics of inside the Montgomery household of watching that game first. But, man, just talk about from a quarterback standpoint, what do you think about watching both C.J. Stroud and Stetson Bennett, but specifically Stetson Bennett in that fourth quarter against Ohio State?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, both offenses, both quarterbacks were dialing it up, to say the least. It was very fun to watch. Both competing at a very high level, and you could just tell that both quarterbacks were in complete control of the offense. Stetson Bennett, complete control in Georgia's offense, and I've been talking to Coach Monken a lot, and he just says that he gives Stetson Bennett a lot of freedom in that offense, and it really showed.
Yeah, Trent, before we get into it, I'm going to let you ask a couple of questions, but I got to know, Ryan, with your brother being an Ohio State commit, and you guys watching the playoff, you're getting heavily recruited by Georgia. I would dare to say that Georgia and Ohio State are maybe even going head to head, depending on how things go with some other schools for your commitment here. What was it like watching that matchup with your brother's going there, but here you are, you're maybe talking somewhat to the enemy on the other side. What was the dynamic in the Montgomery household?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very unique situation. Both schools have treated me very well. They recruited me very well, so I was pretty neutral in that game. I just wanted to watch a great game. It was really all I was asking for, and obviously Luke was cheering for Ohio State as he's committed there. He's pretty bummed that they lost. You could say I kind of wanted Ohio State to win more just because, like, if they would have won, then Luke would have gotten to go to the national championship.
Yeah, you got to root for your brother a little bit, there, but
I was just looking for a great game, and it showed. It really was a great game.
Trent, what you got for Ryan here?
Yeah, Ohio State they're kind of known to have that high-powered offense, and Georgia has been known, kind of in the years past of being more of a defensive school, and now Georgia's kind of putting up points and it's more high scoring now. But being from Ohio, what is the incentive? What does Georgia have that Ohio State doesn't, in your mind?
I would just say, obviously both schools are very talented, but I just think like SEC football, like in general, especially Georgia, just like bigger, faster, stronger, really than any other conference, I'd say. And just like the plug and play, like if one player goes down, then it's next man up at a school like Georgia.
So in terms of the relationship with Todd Monken, you talked a little bit about how he spent all that time with you as an 8th grader, and then even this year, you came for I believe it was the Tennessee game, correct? You came in there for the Tennessee game, one of Georgia's biggest games of the year, and here is Todd Monken spending an inordinate amount of time with a 2025 quarterback, just sitting down, shooting the breeze with you guys before the game and after the game. What did that say to you with Coach Monken, with all his NFL experience, all that kind of stuff? Now he's taking the time, a guy that's a couple classes away, and really spending that time with you.
It's just awesome. It's definitely a blessing. There's definitely a lot of mutual interest between us. He's said before that I'm a top priority in the class. I'm also very interested in Georgia, as you know. And I'm just for Coach Monken to take time before and after the Tennessee game, as big of a game as that was, that just showed a lot to me.
Now, in terms of the offensive style of play, Georgia, in years past has kind of been known more, okay, well, let's run it really effectively. Let's be good on play action, stuff like that. But as we sit today, currently right now, Stetson Bennett ranks 8th in the country in passing, 3,823 yards, and all 7 guys in front of him have more completions and more attempts. So he's been very, very efficient and they take the shots. What's your thoughts on Georgia's offense and kind of how it's developed since Coach Monken's been there?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, with Coach Monken's NFL experience and all that, like he's someone that will not only develop you, but someone that's going to let you take control of that offense and spin the rock. That's definitely something that really interests me. Not only just the numbers that Stetson's putting up, and a lot of people don't realize that, but also just like they're winning games. Like they're just rolling. They're on a roll right now.
Trent, what else you got for Ryan? Yeah, do you have a chance to these 2025 targets, other commits or other I guess uncommitted guys? Do you have a chance to spend time with them, talk to any of them, talk to any guys from like the Southeast?
Yeah, for sure. I have definitely, like, while going on all these visits, I definitely try to talk to as many people as I can, just to grow in relationships with them, because down the road, like, we could be playing with each other, we could be playing against each other. So it's definitely to just build those connections with other guys in this class. Definitely something that I like to do.
And you never know where people are going to end up ultimately, Trent, with the transfer portal these days.
Oh, yeah. But I didn't know how, being up north and, I didn't know if you kind of built relationships with guys that are more up there, or you had the opportunity. I guess you being on these visits, you do get the opportunity, but having the opportunity to meet and talk with these guys from the Southeast.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, does any, in terms of the Georgia players, when you're there, I know that when you're a younger guy, most of the time you're spending with coaches and stuff like that, but I know you had that experience where you kind of ran into JT Daniels there when he was a Georgia Bulldog. Have there been any Georgia players currently on visits that have been like, hey, this is the spot, like kind of reached out to you and talked you up a little bit?
Not personally. They have to all the recruits are there like after a win. But that's something that I like this spring, that when I go on these spring practice visits, Georgia being one of the schools for sure that I go to. That's something that I kind of want to do, is sit down with the current quarterback, ask some questions, and just, see like how they're thinking, like what they're thinking, and just why they came to Georgia.
Now, it seems like, whether it's the 2024 class in front of you, whether it's the transfer portal these days, all this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter seemingly where you go now. If you're a top tier quarterback such as yourself, there's going to be somebody that's already there that is extremely talented. How do you approach that at all? Georgia now, you talk about Georgia and Ohio State connection. Dylan Raiola was a 2024 commit to Ohio State. He's decommitted. Georgia heavily involved there, recruiting him in the class right ahead of you. But also that, Ohio State has got a couple 2023 commits in there this year, signees, and also Michigan, Notre Dame. All these schools are racking up guys already in the class ahead of you. How do you handle that, and does that come into your decision making very much?
That does not really come into my decision making at all. Like you said, like whatever school I'm going to pick, there's always going to be, can't shy away from competition. That's something that will only fuel the fire for me is competition. I love competition. I'm a very competitive guy, and I'm just definitely looking forward to competing in college.
Have you had any interaction with Dylan Raiola, your brother being a commit, him being a former Ohio State commit? Have you guys talked and compared notes on because you've been recruited by a lot of the same schools?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've talked to him a couple times. Not since he's decommitted though, but we've talked a couple times before.
Trent, I may have one more question, but I was going to let you ask one more before we get Ryan out of here to watch some Monday Night Football. He's got a game he's pretty excited about watching back here.
But besides Georgia and Ohio State, what other schools are kind of, at the top of the list for you?
Yeah, schools like Michigan, I've been there multiple times. Definitely interested in them. Clemson's another school that has shown a lot of interest in me. I went on a game visit this fall to Death Valley. That was pretty cool.
They may need you like now. If you Clemson may need you right
now. Tennessee's definitely another school. I went to a game there. The atmosphere was pretty crazy. Penn State, Notre Dame.
Still a lot of options on the table. Yeah, I know you're going to be doing these spring visits after the spring. When is this thing getting kind of cut down for you? And as a guy, even though it's 2025, people don't realize at this point next year, the 2024 class, the majority of them will already be enrolled, and right. You'll be, really this summer is kind of prime commitment time for you quarterbacks ahead of time to help build a class. So what is your timeline as a 2025 guy?
Yeah, so after taking these spring visits, I'm definitely looking to narrow the list down before next season starts, whether that's publicly or just within the family. I would say around 4 or 5 schools. That's probably the next step in my recruitment.
Georgia figured to be solidly in that 4 or 5?
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, I greatly appreciate you coming on with us. We enjoy, covering you and enjoy, looking forward to your year. Already been really productive in your high school career for Findlay, and we'll enjoy watching your junior season coming up.
I guess you're pulling for Cincy tonight.
No, we talked about he's not a Bengals guy because his dad his dad played. Ryan, go ahead and tell your story with your NFL team.
Yeah, so we're Pittsburgh fans, and ironically enough, my dad played with Big Ben here at the high school that I'm at right now, Findlay High School, for a year, and then they both played at Miami, Ohio. So they're pretty good friends, and that's the connection there with Pittsburgh.
Nice.
I hear Ben Roethlisberger likes spending some time in Georgia, so hey, there you go. You can ask him about the state of Georgia. Maybe not all the stories, but who knows? Anyways, Ryan, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Gilmer.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We appreciate Ryan joining us. He is a class of 2025 QB, and now we're gonna get on to the rest of the show here. But we appreciate you, Ryan, joining in. Trent, what do you think? Some of the comments there from Ryan Montgomery, 2025 quarterback that Georgia is heavily pursuing.
Yeah, it just sounds like Georgia. Todd Monken, who you normally don't hear as a big recruiter, for him to be on somebody, as early as 8th grade and building that relationship with him ever since he's been at Georgia, that shows how big of a priority he is in this class. And he kind of said right there that Monken said he's at the top of the list priority wise, and it kind of sounds like Georgia has really that relationship with him and Monken has really put Georgia squarely in the mix for the 2025 quarterback.
Hey. Andy Stowe said, dang, Blaine really went there. Listen, we ask the hard-hitting questions here. We don't bring people onto that softballs, though, Andy. Okay, so we're over here. We're over here asking the hard-hitting questions for sure. Now, listen, guys, go ahead and drop, since we kind of had to get that interview first, go ahead and drop where you're watching from. Go ahead and share this out with all your friends, because now we're going to get into the recruiting coverage here. Other than that interview, go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because not only do we have content here, but you're going to have national championship coverage all week. That's going to be on this channel. Coach Donnan is going to be doing his thing on here with Roddy and Dane that he normally does. And starting January 18th, we have a new show coming to the network. Tavares King and Noshawn Marino every week on here will be live Wednesdays at 8:30. I'll be joining those guys. So it is going to be a lot of great content here. Andy Stowe said he's already shared. He's rocking it from Royston. We've got Edom Dogs podcast joining us from Chester, South Carolina. Beaufort, South Carolina, checking in with Jason Hildreth. We got Burlington, Vermont. Jeremy Barbary from Loganville. So all the usual suspects and more. So everybody check in with us. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Now, Trent, you spent some time down in Orlando this past week watching the Under Armour All-American game preparation. Want to just give you a few minutes here just to kind of unload some notes and observations and tell everybody kind of what you gleaned from your experience down there in Orlando.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to know about Deuce Robinson. He is literally 6'6", 225, 220. He's a rail. Doesn't look like your normal tight end. He looks more like Calvin Johnson or something like that body type. Runs well. He actually won the one-on-one battle down there, and surprisingly, who finished second in that? It was none other than Jonell Aguero. They faced up in the championship, and Deuce actually caught one over Aguero. It was the best 2 out of 3, and Aguero got the best of him on one and got flagged on another. But speaking of Jonell, Jonell said he actually silently committed to Georgia about a month before committing to Georgia. But Florida and a couple other schools came strong down the stretch. He even went into detail about school offering him a substantial
significant.
He was offered a significant, large amount of money from another school, and he chose to be developed by Georgia staff because he felt like that was the best chance of getting him in the NFL. I talked to kicker commit Peyton Woodring. Did not know that he had silently committed to Alabama. He was silently committed to Alabama for a week and changed that commitment to Georgia and just felt like that was the best place for him. He has set the Louisiana State record with a 60-yard field goal and actually hit one from 68 off the ground with a live snap in practice. I watched him at Under Armour practices. He was hitting from
68 yards.
68 yards, and I was watching him Under Armour practices, and he was hitting from 47 with ease, almost over the sticks. So he's got a huge leg. So it'd be interesting to see from an accuracy standpoint. I know a lot of people question the accuracy because he's only 11 of 16, but four of his 5 misses were 50 plus during the season. Also down there was a pair of inside linebackers, Raylan Wilson and Troy Bowles. Just great kids. Raylan Wilson actually got to be Steel Chambers in a scout team, helping prepare Georgia to play Ohio State. He talked about the difference between high school and a college ball. And he said he felt like it's just the mindset. Everybody's down when you get to Georgia, everybody's there to work. And high school, it's a little bit different. You got kids that are not going all out or whatever all the time. So he said that was the main difference. He said just they're just all dogs and they all want the same thing. And Troy, he was measuring about 6'1" to 206. Said that playing secondary had not been really talked about. But Kirby, on his last in-home visit, talked about moving him around, using them in different ways, other than inside linebacker. So I imagine maybe some third down packages coming for Troy. Very fast. He's got speed, very good in coverage. I think he had 3 interceptions in a playoff game at in the state. He was a great kid to talk to. Talked about how his and his father and Kirby's scheme philosophy just kind of match up, and how he's looking forward to playing for Kirby Smart. Trying to think of the last one that was down there. Did not get a chance. Tyler Williams did not come because he stayed with Georgia. Was actually had a jersey on at the over at the playoff game.
Yeah.
So trying to think who else was there. Justin Rhett was there. We haven't seen him, heard much from him, and he's a good sized kid.
So we confirmed he is a real person. Okay.
We confirmed he is a person. He's not Seven Cloud, and he is a part of Georgia's signing class. I guess that's about it for the guys that I covered down there. But it was another guy that was supposed to be down there was the outside linebacker, Gabe Harris. He was a late scratch because he did get injured at Georgia practice, but it was a hyperextension of the knee or something like that. I think that's what Raylan said. So, we'll that's the guys we covered. And I thought the most surprising thing to me was I wasn't expecting the speed from Jonell Aguero. I asked him, and he said that when he was at IMG, he ran a laser 4.35 40, and
Oh, we lost Trent there for a second, so we'll. We lost both of us for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, but it's almost like my internet went out or something. I don't know. Sorry for the interruption there, guys. But yeah, it is different, hearing that about Jonell Aguero, because he really, he's kind of been viewed as, okay, he's more a little bit of a thumper, okay, and he's a guy that can really, make plays, come up, fill the gap. But if he's got that kind of speed, then he may have more in common with Lewis Cine than being from the same area.
He talked about Lewis Cine. He said that's one player he looks up to in his game. Just from he's very he's very thick. He's very muscled up. You can tell he's probably a guy that could. And I said this about Dalen Everett last year. You see his frame and the way he's built is it will get him on the field earlier than later, just because I feel like he's more SEC ready than guys like Jaheim Singletary was, and guys that needed to put on weight. He was 6 foot 202. And for a safety, you got plenty of size there, and you could tell he's got plenty of muscle mass on him.
Absolutely. So I know you talked about Deuce Robinson. We're going to have questions about him, so actually we'll wait off on that for a minute. But in terms of being there and seeing the competition, sometimes Trent, you see guys that they get around. Whether they're at a high school, maybe they're from a smaller high school, or they're just used to being the alpha dog all the time. Sometimes guys respond well to that kind of environment, and sometimes they don't. Who was maybe of Georgia's signees down there that really maybe you would say had the best week?
I would say from what I saw, it'd be Aguero and Raylan Wilson, just because Raylan Wilson's going to, with his speed, the way they're doing it, it's almost like there's not much hitting, during the week, during practice. It's more like you put them out there and it's almost like 7-on-7, but there is offense lineman, defense lineman, but there's not much hitting going on. And I would say just from overall speed and his coverage ability, I would say Raylan Wilson, his speed is awesome. I see him, coming into next year, maybe being a special teams guy. He's getting on campus early. But with what Georgia has returning the inside linebacker, he might come in and play like a Jelon Walker role like he did this year. But I know that it's a deep position, but I think he's one of those guys like Jamon Dumas Johnson that's going to have a big role as a sophomore, just because of his overall speed and ability to track things down. And I asked him, I said, who do you kind of compare to? And Roquan Smith was the first name he said, which is kind of funny because he's kind of built like Roquan. So
absolutely, and he can run. He can run like Roquan can run for sure. So well, that's a great update there from Trent on the Under Armour All-American game. That game's going to be played tomorrow. So you can watch those guys in action tomorrow. Then of course the used to be the Army All-American game. Now it's just the All-American game in San Antonio. Will be, I think, the 7th. So you get to see some Georgia guys on each side in both of those games. Now we're going to get to our vault questions as we do every week. But first, we do want to mention again, presented by Turner Wood & Smith Insurance, in cooperation with Auto Owners Insurance. Turner Wood & Smith, Trey Wood, those guys, they'll help you out with all your customer service needs, get you lined up with the best policy providers, and Auto Owners being one of those. They're good to my family, life, home, car, business. Auto Owners Insurance. You can check out all the information that's scrolling down below on the bottom of the screen throughout the show. Now it's time to get to our vault questions. As we do, make sure if you're in here, got a lot of people in here, hit that like button. That helps out a ton. So as many people as in here, there should be that many likes. Hit that like button for us. We really greatly appreciate that. Subscribe, turn on notifications. And now, Trent, without further ado, let's get to these vault questions. Dark Janus, he's been our first responder on our asking for questions over on the vault last couple of weeks. He says, any news on Smoke Buoy? Also, how did current dogs perform this week at Under Armour All-American? So we've already handled that part of the question. Now we can talk about Smoke Buoy. Trent, it was, widely, everything we were hearing, it's widely speculated that Smoke Buoy ends up being a Georgia Bulldog. Is there any cause for hesitation on that feeling now?
No, I don't think so. And honestly, I'm not even sure Smoke Buoy will even make an announcement, just the way I think, how everything turned out at Texas A&M and him coming and, he hasn't, it was, back in Georgia. And I think this might be one of those situations where you just see him enroll in January and just, start classes. So I still feel good about where Georgia stands with Smoke.
Yeah, I think Smoke Buoy will still end up being a Georgia Bulldog, and I think it could be sooner rather than later, maybe even after the national championship game, something along those lines. See what happens there. of course, we do have to. Well, we'll get to the Raymond Cottrell stuff in a minute. I think we got a question on it. Dave Smith says, "Do we get Deuce or not? And who is the next commit?" So Trent, like you said, you were down there, talked to Deuce. You felt for a while that Georgia is in the driver's seat in this one. Did that feeling get bumped up a little bit in your face-to-face interaction with Deuce this weekend?
Yeah, it did. I think the way he talked about Georgia, he mentioned being closest with the USC commits, which makes sense because that's, he's from out west. But it seemed like Georgia and Texas were kind of the two schools that he went on about. And I think the way he talked about Georgia and what he said was discussing it's ultimately going to come down to relationships and how he feels like the coaches are going to how he feels like the coaches and the players interact, and how the players and the players together interact. And he's talked about, and then he went on to say how when he took an official visit, it boosted Georgia way up just for the fact that he saw how much the Georgia players loved each other and played for each other, and the culture that Kirby Smart built at Georgia being selfless instead of playing for themselves, playing for each other. And that kind of coincided with what he's looking for in the decision. So, yeah, I do like where Georgia stands right now. And he said as far as visits, I think he's going to try to take some unofficial visits to the 4 schools that are in it, which is Georgia, USC, Texas, and then Alabama's the 4th, which I think they're a little bit behind. He mentioned Oregon as a possibility, but he said he wants to stick to those 4 schools and decision hopefully come on February 1st.
Yeah, and in terms of who's the next commit, I mean, I think you'd probably be looking as a guy to look out for the All-American game that used to be the Army. I guess it's the Army All-American game. I don't know, whoever the sponsor is. January 7th out there, Peyton Woodyard, who's in the class of 2024, he's going to be out there not as a player in that game, but just as somebody being around and he's going to make an announcement. We're hearing out there, and Georgia has long, been in good position with him, so he could end up being the next commitment in this in the class of 2024, actually. But 2023, I think you're going to wait around and see what happens with Deuce in terms of that. So February signing day. Let's check the YouTube comments real quick here. People are talking about the refs for the national championship game. It's the ACC refs. So, hey, ACC's got to get something, right? So let the referees do the game. Let them feel like they're a part of something. QStog 52. If Deuce wants to play for a championship, he comes to UGA. If he wants to play like a bowl before Christmas, he goes elsewhere. So QStog is firmly saying if you want to play for championships, come to Georgia. So not really a question there from QStog, but more a declarative statement there, Trent. He's putting it out there. All right. Rumors, speaking of rumors versus fact, Andy Stowe says, rumors are Denver wants Harbaugh. If he were to go, do you think Donovan Edwards pulls a John Cena, can't see me, Michigan, and heads to the good guys? Donovan Edwards was right down to the wire between Michigan and Georgia. Really, the last week or so of his recruitment, it looked like Georgia still had a chance. I would imagine there would be a lot of Michigan Wolverines that would rethink their position with that program if their leader decided to go back to the pro ranks.
Yeah, and that's just a wait and see thing. I think with Georgia having Dejon and Kendall coming back, they feel comfortable with taking 5 in next year. Of course, if a guy like Donovan Edwards hit the portal, then Georgia would seriously have to think about that, because their position with him in recruiting and their relationship with him and Donovan's mother and stuff like that. But so we'll wait and see on that. But I do think I think that's a possibility, and we'll see what happens with Harbaugh, because he's been in this situation pretty much every year since he's been at Michigan. So we'll see ultimately what happens.
Yeah, Kirby Smart, Del McGee, all these guys, when you hear them talk, media days, transfer portal, all that kind of stuff, they're adamant in saying that Georgia has to either have had a prior relationship with the player or have closely scouted that player in preparation for playing them, a la Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas that have come in. Of course, Smoke Bowie would be in that same boat. Donovan Edwards would be in that same boat as well, because Del McGee was, of course, all over him in that.
And Georgia's not one of these schools offering kids NIL deals when they're on current rosters. So, so.
Absolutely. F. McCrary Jr. says, now that early signing day has come and gone, can you confirm of the current signees who was a silent commit? So we'll answer that question first. We knew Anthony Evans was committed for a long time, Trent. After he decommitted from Oklahoma, we knew that flip was coming.
He was silently committed when he was committed to Oklahoma, even before he decommitted.
He's like, listen, I ain't decommitted yet, but this thing's going down. Okay, so Anthony Evans was one of them. Tyler Williams, we knew that thing was done for a while. He's a guy there. CJ Allen, knew that was going to happen.
Samuel Mpemba was down there actually. Also, I forgot to mention him earlier, but he was another one that was silently committed for a while before he committed.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few guys like that we know for sure, like we knew were coming and had these recruiting stories, the commitment stories prepped for a long time out there. We knew Kyron Jones was coming at the end there, knew that was going to be happening, that flip, and tried to give guys a heads up on that. And then I guess the other one that comes to mind for me in terms of a silent commit, I get even Damon Wilson. Like Damon Wilson, we kind of knew a week out that this thing was going to happen for them. And man, when you see the even though CJ Stroud was not known as a running quarterback, Trent, guys that have mobility, it just further magnifies the importance of getting those dynamic edge rushers. And Chidera Uzo-Diribe has outdone himself in his first signing class as a Georgia assistant coach.
Yeah, a lot of people wonder why Georgia's defense has taken kind of a step back this year, and I don't think it's necessarily a scheme or anything like that. I just think that they've had since Nolan Smith's gone down, they've had a problem off the edge, and you have a true freshman at one edge, and you have guys that are look really unexperienced. So sometimes you have a true freshman on the other edge with Marvin Jones, and then you have Chaz Chambliss in there who hasn't played a whole lot of snaps in his career, and of course you get Robert Bill, but Robert Bill has never been he's always been a guy that they can trust to be out there to play his gaps assignments and stuff like that, but he's never been a huge sack guy. I know he led the team in sacks last year, but it wasn't a big number. So I think they've really lacked those guys this year, like a Lorenzo Carter and a Davin Bellamy and guys like they've had in the past.
Yeah, no doubt. Next question we got here is from Scuffletown. It says, do you think that the talent on the roster, and he had a longer question than this. I'll read the entirety of the question. I just couldn't put it all up. He said, I believe that we, Georgia, will beat TCU as most Dog fans do. If Georgia does, many think that places us as the best in college football. Well, back-to-back national championships, I would say, does place you as the best in college football. Since you guys do recruiting, following the team closely, do you think the talent on the roster that will be playing over the next couple of years will keep Georgia with a very good possibility of continuing the opportunity of winning the Natty? And then he goes on to say this year's been very good after losing 15 draft picks. Is the roster loaded with potential to keep playing at that level? Listen, and I'll let you give your take on it here in just a second. But all I'm telling people is that defense that you saw, yes, they gave up some points to Ohio State, but the defense that you've seen this year, you're going to see the majority of that defense back, probably seven guys coming back, and then the guys that are getting experience behind them. Then plus, Trent, I think that Georgia's wide receiver core next year will be the deepest it's been in the entirety of the Kirby Smart era. yes, you'll be breaking in a new quarterback, probably 2 new offensive tackles, but really 1 because Amarius Mims is starting now, maybe a new center. So some offensive line stuff and a quarterback. But in terms of the skill positions, I don't know that Georgia will ever have been deeper. And, oh, by the way, go look at that 2023 schedule. The hardest non-conference game is Georgia Tech, and there's no Alabama or LSU on that schedule.
Yeah, and that's what I've been telling people. I said, I think, with Georgia, what the impressive thing is Georgia has a chance to go back to back, and I think this is going to be their worst year from a talent standpoint for the next 3 years. I think the 23 year and the 24 year is going to have more talent. Now, you're losing guys like Jalen Carter. You're losing guys like Broderick Jones and key members of this that are probably going to be first-round picks. But you've stacked so much talent on that defensive side of the ball. If you can continue to get elite defensive line play, which there's no doubt, as long as the coaching staff's there, that Trey Scott, you're going to get elite defensive play. You'll get elite defensive development on the defense line. I think you're going to be better in the secondary next year. I think you're going to be, you're going to be better at linebacker just because you got the 2 inside linebackers coming back. And you're going to have a edge rush next year. It's going to be better than this year because you just didn't have one this year. Michael Williams will have another year. And offensively, like you talked about, there's just going to be playmakers galore. You're not going to have that issue with wide receiver with the lack of. And depending on who comes back, if you can bring those guys back, you're going to have 5 or 6 deep when maybe – a guy like Arian Smith being your 5th, 6th guy, and you see what he has the capability of doing. So, yeah, I think the wide receiver, that offense, you're going to see not much drop off at all, maybe even a step up. It all depends on quarterback play there, but I think the defense is going to be better and more talented the next couple of years.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, yes, Stetson Bennett is I tweeted out, he's a legend. I mean, there's no arguing it now. For what he's done for Georgia football, he's an all-time legend of Georgia football, and he will be, some people may not even believe this statement, he will be sorely missed, I think, by Georgia next year in certain areas with his mobility, with his, the clutch gene that he seems to have. He steps up in the biggest moments, but when it comes down to it, Trent, how do you alleviate, inexperience at the quarterback position? Well, you put a ton of playmakers around them, like you said, and that's exactly what Georgia will have done. And it's also not like if it is Carson Beck or if it is Brock Vandegrift or if it is Gunnar Stockton, it's also like it's not going to be any of those guys' first year in Todd Monken's system. They all have been steeped in it a little bit, and quite frankly, Carson Beck probably knows it as well as anybody at this point. So, I think Georgia is well positioned going forward, recruiting wise.
I think the impressive part of what Stetson and the offense has achieved is the simple fact that they don't have Marvin Harrison running around. Yes, they have Brock Bowers, but they don't have the wide receivers like Alabama's had in the past or Ohio State's had in the past, and to be able to beat those teams, and Stetson's played every one of those teams head to head, and had been as good as the other quarterback, and that's what's been impressive is that he's doing more with less. And not to say Georgia didn't talent on offense, because I think A.D. Mitchell's a good player, I think Ladd, but they're just not Marvin Harrison and those guys. So I think he's done more with less than the other guys, and it's just been that's what's been impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean it's. You look at the sack that Bullard had on Stroud. Well, who was bringing the pressure up the middle? It was Bear Alexander, right? And that's a name that is going to be well known next year with Jalen Carter leaving. You're going to have Bear Alexander in there. Sean Washington. He's in there. He's already played some at the interior.
Tyrion Ingram Dawkins.
Yeah, Ingram Dawkins. I mean, they've got a bunch of guys that have been instrumental as being guys kind of waiting their turn and are going to be out there. So I think it's going to be well positioned going forward for Georgia. All right, so now let's look here and see what our next question is. It comes from Pine Tree 1. Is UGA still pushing for a class with Walker Lyons and Deuce Robinson in it? Kind of a trick question because they really wouldn't be in the same class because Walker Lyons is going to do a Mormon mission that will put him either, I'm not 100%, schooled in how that goes. So I don't know if that's a 1 year or 2 year absence, but you're really looking more at him being a 2024 or 2025 guy. But listen, Todd Hartley didn't fly all the way across the country and do an in-home visit for no reason with Walker Lyons, Trent.
Yeah, and everything I was talking to people down in Orlando, and everything I heard was Georgia's about to land 4 of the top 6 or whatever tight ends in the country, and Walker Lyons is part of that group. Now, whether or not Georgia's able to finish that off, we'll see. I do think that they sit in a good position for Deuce Robinson, but they are continuing to go after Walker Lyons, and I think it is because of that more of that class separation and getting that guy. By the time he's a 24 or 25 guy, that's like having another 5-star tight end in the class. So I like where Georgia stands for Deuce, and we'll see where the chips fall on Walker.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's see right here. $16 says, what is the backstory on Cottrell? Did we encourage him to look around? Did he have grade issues? Were grades the reason he couldn't early enroll? It was really more of a numbers game here. You have so many spots that you could deal with the 85 and people early enrolling and stuff like that. And sometimes some guys get asked to wait in terms of being an early enrollee. Georgia still, I believe, Trent would have liked to have had Cottrell in the class, but when that happens, feelings can get hurt a little bit, and when somebody else comes and when that happens and somebody else starts paying you a lot of attention, like Texas A&M did, then he thought that was the best move for him.
Yeah, it's a hard situation with a guy because you're getting ready to graduate high school. You plan to early enroll, and then you kind of get asked to wait, and now you go back to high school for I guess another semester or whatever, and you're waiting, and some guys elect to say, okay, I'm good with that, and some guys just want to they've been planning to early enroll and they just want to early enroll, and I think he made the best decision for him and the path that he wanted to take, and he chose to go elsewhere, and best of luck to Cottrell and his future on the football field.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got some more questions here. Let's look. OU Herschel Walker says, does Raiola reconsider and go to Ohio State, or does he sign elsewhere? And then also he has best football player to become a pro wrestler: Ernie Ladd, Dusty Rhodes, Steve McMichael, The Rock, Goldberg, or Ron Simmons. Listen, I know that the answer here on a Georgia show would probably be Goldberg, but hands down, it's Ron Simmons in terms of that. Ron Simmons was he's a 3-time All-American at Florida State. Dude was absolute nightmare as defensive tackle, heck of an athlete. So Ron Simmons, if you hadn't seen, that's the answer on that one. Now, as far as Dylan Raiola, I can tell you this, it didn't take long, I don't think, for Georgia to contact Dylan Raiola after that clock hit 000s against Ohio State. I just have a little inkling that was brought up and mentioned. I feel like Georgia is as well. I've reported it time and time again. They're as well positioned as any school in the recruitment with Dylan Raiola. I think you'll definitely see him make a trip at some point to Athens before any kind of decision is made. It's going to be a well thought out decision. And I'll just say this, the Georgia Bulldogs are pushing all the way from the very top. Kirby directly involved in this. And I think they've made it quite clear that they want Dylan Raiola. If it was my bet right now, I would, if I was saying, does Dylan Raiola go back to Ohio State or does he go somewhere else? I would say take the field instead of Ohio State. Trent, what's your thoughts on Raiola?
Yeah, I think he'll end up somewhere other than Ohio State. I think I think Ohio State's still pushing there, but I do think he ends up somewhere other than Ohio State, and I think Georgia has positioned themselves in a nice position. I know Nebraska is pushing as well with the family, having family there, but I do think he's looking to do the best thing for him in this scenario, and I do know Todd Monken and Kirby Smart have been push as well. And I guess he did get a little phone call after that game the other day, or maybe a little message. But yeah, I think Georgia's heavily in the mix. We'll see what happens this spring. And like we talked about quarterbacks, I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to make a decision by the spring after some visits. But I think Georgia's gonna get a visit and be heavily in the mix there.
Yeah, and it's not just Dylan Raiola, I don't think. I mean, it's other guys. I mean, I'm sure Deuce Robinson. I'm sure 2024 guys, 2025 guys, all anybody that they could legally contact were getting contacted by Georgia coaches, because I'm sure that that's just part of it. That's part of how Kirby operates. You saw in the interview with Holly Rowe, literally seconds after winning, he's over there telling her how bad Stetson Bennett played. He's got to play better to win the national championship after putting up almost 400 yards and 4 total touchdowns, one rushing, three passing. So Kirby's always coaching, he's always recruiting, and I guess that's what's made this Georgia program be where it's at. So Trent, like I said, it's national championship week. We'll have all the coverage here. Anything before we let the people out of here? What any parting thoughts on recruiting, on the state of the Georgia program, on anything like that, man?
No, I got the stories on Jonel Aguero coming to the site tomorrow, and his thoughts and stuff on the NIL process. I think Georgia's program as a whole is probably as good as it's ever been. Just to hear these recruits talk about the way he's built a culture of having selfless guys on the team, and just building that continuity. Just the whole program. They said, talking about the players ain't worried about their stats. And I talked to the 2 of the 3 inside linebackers, and they're all 3 roommates in college. And they said, we're not worried about. We look at what Georgia did with Channing Tindall and Nakobe Dean and those 3 guys together, Quay Walker, and they said, that's going to be us 3 in a couple of years. And they said, we ain't worried about who puts up stats.
Quay Walker, I don't believe was ever really a full-time starter for Georgia at any point, and he's maybe the rookie of the year defensively in the NFL. I mean, he's been just unbelievable for Green Bay. So yeah, guys, we firmly can't tell you enough how much we appreciate your support here on the channel. 2022 was a tremendous year of growth. We look for 2023 to be the same. It's all because of you guys, following along and liking the content. So as we said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We got Coach Donnin's show coming up on the 18th. We have the debut of the weekly show here. A name will be, put out before too long, but the weekly show that's going to be live with Tavares King and Noshawn Marino each week starting January 18th. And then, of course, we have Rumors versus Facts here each Monday night, and we're going to be doing 8:30 from here on out. So 8:30.
What time what are we going to do next Monday?
Next Monday, well, we won't be going live next Monday because there's a little game going on. So we'll skip Rumors versus Facts, or maybe we'll do a little Sunday edition or something like that. So it'll be fun to see that. It's a fun time in college football in general. It's a fun time to cover what's going on with Georgia football. So appreciate you guys tuning in. For Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. We will catch you guys next time on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.